Hi folks, next little upgrade for the R32 is going to be a short shifter kit. This kit will reduce the forward and backwards movement on the gear shifter, and these are the parts I have to install this as part of the kit, plus a few extras. This is the main device itself. This mounts into the gearbox and turns side to side and up and down, and the main difference between the OE one is this slotted hole where you can change it between the shorter throw and the longer throw. And just as a heads up, this is the shortest throw. The closer it is to that splined section, the shorter it is. So that's the main arm bracket that will replace. The three sort of round end ball end sections are given to you to cover all the bases for the 6-speed gearboxes on the VAG range. So you'll see the ends are different designs or different diameters to go alongside. There's also a nylock washer there as well, and that holds the ball end in place when it's up onto the shifter arm. I have three machined washers there which will hold the cable brackets in place. They're rubber isolated ones currently. These washers will give a more solid feel, so to speak. We'll see what difference they actually make in the real world, but basically it's a rubber bush and they're going to be a solid version from now on once I put these installed or put them in place. These 5mm threaded bolts are for the gear shift assembly to go inside. Basically, whenever you fit a short shifter, you should reset the gear change cables back into their neutral position, and those threaded bolts will hold the interior gear shift assembly into the neutral position while you adjust it all, just as a lock-in pin pretty much. You can of course use a 5mm nail approximately as well, so any sort of metal or plastic 5mm rod will hold it all in place. So anyway, I'll go back over to the engine bay and show you roughly where I'm going here, and I'll start into the installation process. Okay, you can see I'm at the engine bay under the bonnet on the R32. Basically, the gear shift assembly is down in there, or where we're going to be going. You can possibly see, it might not come out in the camera, you can see the two gear change cables coming up in there, and as I said, the assembly's down in there along with the brackets. You can see most of it just there. To get access to this, obviously this airbox here has to come out. No big hassle. A few Phillips head screws will get it out and it'll pop out in place, and the hose clamp there will give us a bit more access, and will obviously be much clearer for you to see in the camera once I get it out of the way. So anyway, as I said, that's my first step, get this airbox out, and then we can start looking at the removal process here. You can now see with the airbox removed, I have a great deal of clearance now. You'll see this arm here is the arm we're going to replace, and because we're only replacing the 4.5 forwards and backwards one, that's the only real cable there, this one here, that we need to disconnect. But I'm going to disconnect both because I'm a bit special. I'm going to reset both gear shift assemblies into neutral. So first step will be to remove the two clips on each side of the cables. Generally it's a case of lifting up the wee tabbed end and popping these off, and then you'll see the 3 bolts there for the cable. Those are the 3 sort of machined washer style devices that I had in the bag. They'll get replaced as well. So once I disconnect the 2 cables, those 3 bolts, and then that 1 bolt down there will be the next one to remove, and we can go from there. Just to help people, I just thought I would show them the clips. These are the clips that hold the 2 cables on in place. Generally I've managed to take these off with my fingers, don't need any fancy tools, so no pressure required. Generally when you use a lever like a screwdriver, they pop off and go into the engine bay, never to be seen again. But that cable there sat approximately in that orientation. I was able to put my wee finger under it, lift that tab up, and you'll find it slides out. This one from memory was a slightly different orientation, but same sort of thing. All you need to do is lift up on the wee tab enough to let it slide off, and that's it. So those two are out now, so I can peel off the two gear change cables now. Okay, you'll see both gear change cables are out. They just obviously slide off once the pins are removed. And this one's out as well. I'll then go on to these 3 bolts on that bracket there and get them removed as well. You'll see I have 3 bolts out there for the cable bracket. There's rubber washers with a metal insert that goes into them. Firstly, you need to push the metal washers down through from above. I'll show you them shortly here to explain a bit better, but if you get a set of like fine nail nose pliers and push them down from above, you'll see it's all part of like a metal collar. There's a wee washer that sits at the bottom. That'll push out through the bottom. You remove that, and there's a rubber then washer that stays in there. You need to sort of push it towards the middle and then push it down through, and then that'll get that removed. And you'll see I have the 2 rubber washers still sitting there on them. They have to be removed. Just to show you, these are the bolts and washers that come out there. This is the rubber washer that sits, and you can see the split in the middle there. That's obviously for the metal bracket. And these are the washers just as they come out. Really, I grab them here, a set of fine pliers over the washer like so, and you press down on the top of that there, and that pushes it down through the bottom, and you'll see they're easy enough removed that way. There's no real major force required, so that should do that. So I'll crack on and get the remaining 3 rubber washers out. I've been looking at these washer nut jobbies in detail here. You'll see the top and bottom of them are slightly different thickness. From looking and trying to compare to the original setup, the thicker end does seem to be at the bottom. So I'm going to try and space things as it should be, or was out of the factory, with the thicker end at the bottom. This doesn't make the installation a bit easier. It would be easier if the thicker end had the captive insert going up, but so be it. I'll do it. So this side is going to be at the bottom here, and that will drop down through the top, and that should get the spacing just right. So I'll crack on and get that done. Okay, that is the washer insert jobbies installed in the shifter bracket. Much easier installation than I thought. I was expecting it to be very likely that I would drop a washer in, but I worked from the back forward and didn't have a problem. They all screwed in nice and easy. Obviously screw them in hand tight first of all, and see how that goes. But yeah, no big problems now with that part of the job. Next stage will be to remove that nut there, and just as a heads up, if it helps, the nuts in the shifter bracket cable were 13mm. So as I said, I will try this wee jobby here now, try and remove it. There we go, that is the shifter arm removed there, as you can see, revealing the spline shaft there, which has been lightly cleaned up. And then the wee rubber bit that slides in between, what I would say it's almost like a weight, just to the side of the spline bit. Give it another quick clean, make sure everything's nice and clean, so none of the splines get damaged or anything like that. Just to quickly show you, that is the old bracket. As you can see, it's pretty dirty, and That is the nut there, was removed from that area there. So that came off, and that was a 13mm nut as well. And you can see this is where the cable attaches, and this is the bit that I showed you earlier in the video that has the wee elongated hole or rectangular hole there. And out of the 3 ends, you have to match your end with that bit there, match it up. So that's off. Probably not to go back onto the car again, assuming this all goes well. I'll give everything another quick clean up and start setting up the new shifter arm. This is now the shifter arm assembled. You see a comparison between the old and the new there. First point of call, remember to grease the inside of there. I've got some red rubber grease on the inside of that, plus on the wee rubber or nylon slider that goes inside that wee bracket there. So that's greased up. You'll see I've matched the cable pin there up with the one supplied in the kit, and as you'll see on the inside, I haven't quite sort of went for the full the shortest setting on the gear shift. Gives me a wee bit of movement, and I've found from previous experience going too short and these things can cause you problems at times, so I've went slightly past or slightly before the shortest setting. And just as a rough sort of layover there, you can probably see the shifter pin on the original versus this one. The sort of leftmost setting, the furthest away from where I am now, is probably heading towards the standard setting. So just as a sort of rough guide there for anybody interested. So next point of call will be fitting this into the car. I expect some of the tricky parts will be getting that slider in place there, and also just as a note, as you can probably see in this spline shaft, just where my finger is there, you'll see there's a missing 1 or 2 splines there. That's just to sort of mark where it'll fit onto the gearbox, so that the shaft that comes up will only go on one way. So if it's not going on too easy, maybe slightly turn it either way, clockwise or anti-clockwise, and it should slide in, but you should be able to see that on the spline shaft there on the gearbox itself. That is the shifter arm in place, as you can see. Both shifter cables have not been attached yet, so both are still removed or out of action there. The shifter arm wasn't a big problem putting it into place once the spline bolts lined up. It was a nice firm fit, slid down, and I could see it went home okay. Naturally, you don't want to put any major force on it, so you don't want to wreck the splines on either the bracket or the gearbox pin itself. That's the nut as well, tightened down, as you can see. So that is firm but not too tight. I think there can be problems where people over tighten these things and cause a lot of problems, and I would say very expensive problems. So it's on firm but not too tight. The 3 bracket bolts there are tight as well. So before I attach these springs, most guides or videos on YouTube don't show you how to do this, so I'm going to show you how to do it. Basically, you have to reset the neutral section or neutral point on these cables, and this will bring in the 5mm bolts that I showed you at the start of the video. That'll lock the gear change inside the car in neutral. You will zero out these cables, attach them on and unlock them. I'll show you this in the video here to explain them properly. That will get your gear change as good as it's ever going to be. So I'll crack on and go back into the inside of the car now. Okay, you'll see I'm inside the car here. Gear shift or gear knob in view there. Popped up the gator and surround there. I found pushing the gear stick forward and put my hand in at the back, and it popped up with a reasonable bit of force. Anyway, you'll see I have the threaded rod in place here. Drops down through that bracket and then into the locator hole there, and as you can see, even on the plastic housing, it's pretty secure, so I'm pretty much happy that's as good as it's going to get. So it's down and located nice and home. Basically what this does is make sure your gear shift cables are in the neutral position, which they seem to be. And what you do then is you go into the engine bay, reset the cables. I'll show you how to do that, and that will get everything as tight as it could possibly be. And on to the resetting the shifter cables as mentioned. So you'll see that far one, the spring has been pushed back. So what you do is you basically push against the spring tension and then turn it to lock it in place. I'll try to do this one while on camera. It's actually coming off. There we go. That was a bit of a clumsy one there, but you can see the tensions off the spring there, and that just pushes back on. So what you do on both cables is setting them back on. Okay, like so. Put the pins on each side and go back into the car, or well, put the pin. So now that these two cables are on, the next thing to do is put the locking pins on the end of each cable. Release the tension on the cables just by turning the opposite way, and of course the pins will push back, or the spring will push back. And once you've done that in both cables, go back to the inside of the car, remove your locking nut that I had in place, the bolt, and that's us good to go. And just as a note folks, make sure you're reset into neutral here, so you don't want to be locking the cables into a certain gear that way. So make sure you're right in the middle. There's one side neutral on the other side, so we're all okay there, we're all set in neutral. You can see that is the tension removed from the springs, and the spring clips are in place now. So as far as I'm concerned, this engine bay part of the gearbox is now done. So as mentioned, back into the inside of the car, remove the locking screw or bolt, and give the gearbox a wee test, cycle through the gears and see how it feels. There we go folks, that seems to be it, all done. Happy with the gear shift there, seems to be going through the gears smooth enough. You obviously get very paranoid about these things after you do it. Does that feel right? It feels a bit different, but it certainly feels to me, while the throw's obviously much shorter, but it feels like a much stronger, sort of more positive gear shift feel in a complementary way. I always find the Volkswagen Audi grip gear shifts feel a wee bit vague and plasticky, so I think this is a definite good improvement there that way, so very happy. So time to clip all these wee bits of trim and stuff back in place, get the airbox and stuff like that put back in, and maybe go for a quick drive. Hopefully that video was of help anyway folks. Definitely it's a DIY job, and as you can probably see from the video, I tend to over explain things, but hopefully that saves anybody encountering any issues. But yeah, if you have any comments or queries, feel free to post them up. I can't claim to be an expert, but happy to help if I can. And naturally the cheesy thing is, please like, share and subscribe the videos, it all helps that way. Cheers folks, bye bye.